Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundlesssuccess to join today. Let's get you to the next level.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric E. Lopkin. And the good doctor, we're less than a week away from the election. And you know what's up next. What is your assessment of what's going on? Let her rip.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. I mean, we're watching the Harris campaign implode. She has gotten exponentially angrier. The attacks on, but not just Trump, but now Trump supporters have gotten out of hand. I think this is signaling that even she knows she's going to lose.
I would agree. Let me interject one thing. We talked about before the show. I know an adage that'll be going forward from now on is when your opponent calls you Hitler, you're probably winning. And I have to please explain Uncle Joe's senile. That's why they want him nowhere near her. But it was getting a little light of day with the comedian talking about Puerto Rico. Was it relevant? I'm not so sure, right? It was 2 hours before. And he's known for being a roasting kind of comedian. That was getting some light of day. Uncle Joe, I don't know if he's obvious this one he wasn't doing on purpose, completely effing up her campaign. Was getting some light of day. What does he say? He says garbage. I mean, that's worse than deplorables.
Yeah, he called the Trump supporters garbage. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not so sure he didn't do it on purpose. I think even with his lack of mental acuity, he is still so angry at Harris for participating in the coup to remove him that he is lashing out. And I don't think it makes a difference to him if he lashes out towards Trump or Harris.
I think you're right. I also think he feels pretty pissed, and it was an lip reading kind of thing. He believes that he does not believe she's a good candidate, and I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I'd have to agree with him on that. And he also believes that he would have, if it continued, been a stronger candidate. And that's not so crazy, especially in places like Pennsylvania. Grant and Joe.
It may not have been as crazy as it sounded. We know for a fact that Biden had said while he was candidate again and again that the reason he was running was he was the only candidate that could beat Trump. Well, by saying that, he's implying that Kamala Harris cannot beat Trump. So he obviously believes that. Now, with the garbage comment, yes, the comedian made a comment about Puerto Rico being filled with garbage. The comedian, and I can't remember the comedian's name, but he's not just a roasting comic. He's an insult comic in the style of Don Rickles and Lisa Lampanelli. He goes after ethnic groups on a constant basis. Jon Stewart actually came out earlier saying, this is the guy's job. He's funny. Was it incredibly appropriate?
Yeah, 100% correct.
Yeah, was it incredibly appropriate to have him at this kind of event? Maybe not. but you can't take what he's saying seriously. He wasn't actually calling Puerto Rico garbage. It's a joke. But the one
And that's why
thing,
the news media has no credibility because that's manufactured outrage. It was Trump had no idea even who the hell he was. It was it was before the rally even really got started, and
well,
much
not
ado about nothing. And also George Lopez, who's a big Dem comedian and supporter, have made jokes such as, "Well, when you build a wall, you better not leave any scraps behind because the Mexicans will steal it." And there's echoes, crickets.
right. Well, I mean, the one thing we've learned about the Democrats over the past years is they can't take a joke. That's why cancel culture was born, because God forbid you should offend somebody by saying a joke. By the definition, a joke should not be offensive because a joke is not real.
I
And
agree 100%.
yet the Democrats don't seem to understand this. And not only was this before this did this take place before the actual rally, it took place 2 hours before Trump entered the building. He wasn't even there at the time.
That's what I'm saying. It's called self-created outrage, manufactured outrage, and I'm going to defer to you. Well, now it has no impact, but do you think it had any impact at all before Uncle Joe put his foot in his mouth?
No, I don't think it had any impact. It didn't change anybody's mind. Nobody who was going to vote for Trump changed their mind because a comic made a joke. Nobody who wasn't going to vote for Trump changed their mind over it. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is, at this point, people still talk about the undecideds. I don't know that there are any undecideds left. People have made their decisions by now.
Yeah, 100%. And you know something? If you're still undecided, guess what? You're not going to vote. Sorry to burst your bubble. Okay,
Probably
you're
not.
no, probably not. And if you're undecided, also, you're probably not the brightest bulb in the Christmas tree. I mean, hello, genius. What else do you need? Hello. I think it's nothing, and I actually do find it funny because, like CNN, well, MSNBC is completely mushugana, but they'll have a half hour dissecting it. I mean, talk about losing your credibility is an absolute joke, no pun intended. But I think
And
Trump
let's not
is actually.
let's not forget that the people who are making a big deal over this comment are the same people who have been calling Trump Hitler, calling the people attending the rally Nazis. And they're upset because somebody did an insult joke about Puerto Rico?
100%. I actually, how do you like this? I want your opinion on this. I just kind of thought, I'm not so it might have a slight positive impact. Not that it's really anything's going to move right now at this point, but it's kind of like shows desperation, don't you think so? I mean, all this stuff combined just gets in. I mean, even anyone with an IQ above 80 knows it's a bunch of bullshit. You have to be a complete either die in the wool socialist Democrat or a moron, correct, to have
Well,
that sway you.
yeah, I mean, at this
A
point,
moron.
everything that the Harris campaign and her supporters are doing reeks of desperation.
100%.
You know,
Even the
this
January 6th bullshit, it
us
was a joke.
especially the January 6th. She made this speech. She was allegedly calling for unity at the site of Trump's, speech on
Mm-hmm.
January 6th. Subtle. And of course, as she's calling for unity, Biden is calling the Trump supporters garbage, which blew her message out of the
Garbage.
water. I mean, the
I think it
timing
actually
on that
complete. No,
could
whoa. Do you don't think it completely just overshadowed? I think it blew it up.
Oh, yes, the timing on that couldn't have been more perfect.
It's completely. But when you recap the week for Mamala, CNN town hall, an abject disaster. And
This
the Madison Square Garden was a rock show. So you may want to had any comments on the CNN town hall with Anderson Cooper.
Yeah, the CNN town hall was a disaster, as you said. It was amazing watching the look on Anderson Cooper's face.
Loved it.
And what was really funny was he actually tried pushing her to answer some questions. And the liberal elite started going after him for being an elite white male.
Oh yeah, I actually do give him credit. I'm not a big fan of him just because I think he's boring. I mean, I don't really ever dislike him or whatever. But he actually stood up, had some chutzpah. He said, "Listen, that's my job.
Yes.
Yeah, it's my
And, and
job."
and he was doing his job, and she still managed to not answer any questions. I mean, I've actually gotten to the point where I'm telling people, look, if you need to make an excuse about something, just start the excuse with, well, I was born into a middle class family. Because
I think
that's
something. I'm surprised it's not used more in comedy, like a skit like an SNL, like someone's charged with murder. So where were you at the scene of the
yes.
crime? I
Well,
was born in a middle class. I think that's
exactly.
excellent.
That she has repeated it so many times and so inappropriately that it has lost all meaning. It is a punchline now, and she keeps repeating it. And you would think that by now her staff would have had her memorize something else to replace it with, but she's using the same tired tropes that she has used the entire campaign. And people are tired of it. Her approval rating is dropping. At this point, Trump's approval rating is 10
It's higher.
points larger than hers. The only poll that has her still ahead is the ABC News poll.
Oh, but they're unbiased. What are you, nuts?
Oh, of course. We saw how
Yeah,
unbiased they were with the debate.
that was amazing. Yeah. So th- your assessment of where you had your assessment last week. Excellent. I think you gave it around a 60. Has it about the same, a little more? What do you think?
I actually think it's about the same, but
I agree.
I am a little concerned because you've they've already caught fake Democratic poll workers in Pennsylvania trying to rig the election and trying to keep Trump supporters from voting. So they've already started to try to stack the deck and steal the election. Now,
Doesn't that
I don't think it's going to be as easy for them as it was in 2020 to pull some of these shenanigans because now people are actually on the lookout for it. You've got folks with cell phone cameras catching these guys in the act.
I agree 100%. And getting back to the state of the election or Kamala's campaign, again, another indication of desperation. Am I not correct?
Oh, yes. Again, everything she's doing just reeks of desperation. And it is absolutely amazing because the one thing she could do that could potentially turn things around would be to actually talk about policies. That's what her supporters want to hear. But she's not even giving them that. Now,
Yeah, but I
granted,
think no, 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 no. I
I
think
don't
it's a
think her
great advice for. Yes, you're an astute guy, Dr. Lockton, no question about it. If she had an IQ above 80, I would say that'd be
right,
the thing
yes,
to do, but it will just spiral down into oblivion. How do you like that?
quite possibly. But I think, if she could memorize the line about being born into a middle class person, into a middle class family, they could have given her some policy lines to memorize. She doesn't even have to understand what they mean. Just, just repeat a line
I
that's
like it.
about a policy.
I like it, but it was not a good week for her. Yeah, in spite of the manufactured outrage on the comedian, yeah, the Madison Square Garden rock show, I call it. Okay, the Joe Rogan interview, he crushed it. Um, and also you even had, I think it was in New York, the Hasidim have officially endorsed Donald J. Trump
Yeah,
and said
Trump.
that he's a gift to Israel.
Yeah, Trump has gotten a number of very important and somewhat ironic um, endorsements over the past week. The Hasidic community in New York came out and endorsed Donald Trump. Muslim leaders in Michigan came out
Yes, I
and
forgot. Yes,
endorsed Donald Trump. Uh,
enthusiastically.
yes. So, I mean, there's a certain irony to both of those groups endorsing Trump, but I think that is indicative of how badly Harris is doing because you have those disparate groups coming together behind Trump. You've got the LA Times refusing to endorse Harris. You've got the Washington Post now refusing to endorse Harris.
Yes, and actually, real quick, it's like Biden had like almost 200 endorsements in 2020. I think she's down to like 75 or 80.
Yeah, I think the number was 83, the last number I
There you
saw.
go. Okay, okay.
But
Yep.
yeah,
So
it's
80
yeah,
something. Yep.
so many less than Biden. And Trump has gotten so many more endorsements than he had in 2020. People that never said they said they'd never endorse him are suddenly endorsing him. And of course, you've got Liz Cheney, yelling about Trump. I love there is a meme going around social media um, from I don't know where it originated, but it's obviously a Republican meme, and it says, "Wait a minute, we get Tulsi Gabbard and they get Liz Cheney. That's the trade
And
of a life.
RFK.
That's the well, no,
I love
RFK
that. No,
wasn't
you're a
his.
hundred. Yeah.
That's the trade of a lifetime."
Yeah, I agree. I saw that. It's hysterical. The one I saw didn't include RFK, but it's still the fact. It's. I mean, first of all, tone deaf. That's like, like, I don't know, like some band from the 80s. It's like, it's over, dude. No one cares about Liz Cheney. And in fact, many people don't like her, hate her father. He's a warmonger. He's got us into one of the biggest debacles, if the biggest debacle since Vietnam. So,
And,
um,
I do
go
have
ahead.
to wonder what they were thinking when they decided to have her campaign for Harris, because
Desperation.
she wasn't going to convince any Republicans. The Republicans don't like her for turning on them with the January 6th commission, and in fact, she lost her primary by I think 70 or 80 points. So she wasn't going to convince any Republicans. She wasn't going to convince the Muslim community. They view her and her father as war criminals.
Yep.
So this was bad all around. There was nobody that was going to be swayed by a Liz Cheney endorsement.
But you got nothing else. Like, let's be honest. It's 3 minutes left of the game. You're down, I don't know, 15 points. You got to throw some shit against the wall, right?
Yeah,
I
but
mean, what
I
else are
mean,
you gonna do?
but there are other people that had a better chance of convincing folks, even though they might also not be the brightest bulbs in the room. Jimmy Kimmel, for example, has been banging the drum, begging Republicans to back Harris. Now, nobody's going to listen to him, but he's a better spokesperson than Liz Cheney is.
Yes. Well, my cat Carl's a better
Yes.
spokesperson on a good day only. But again, let's kind of retouch this state of the election. Am I correct in saying that unless there's something unbelievable, 6 days, and let's face it, you're factoring in a weekend and you're factoring in the actual day of the vote. You're talking really like 4 days. I don't see how this thing changes one
No,
way or another.
no, at this point, even the campaigns are saying, it is what it is. In fact, the speech that Kamala was giving while Biden was bad mouthing Trump supporters was actually billed as her closing arguments.
You
This
don't
what
find that funny or troubling that basically she had one shot. I'm not saying it would have worked. could have moved the needle a little bit, would have had a lot of play on CNN, MSNBC, but they could not help but covering Uncle Joe. He every time he just f's her up. He destroyed it. He ruined the. I mean, and wait, I want your opinion on this. You talk about the basket of deplorables. That probably cost Hillary the election. There's no certainty,
Yes,
but certainly didn't help. It did. It cost her the election.
yeah, it had
Okay.
a major effect.
So this is worse than basket of deplorables. You're talking calling people trash.
Well, I mean,
That's
again,
bad.
you have to remember, though, that the Democrats have been doing this throughout the campaign. Hillary went out and said she didn't go far enough with her basket of deplorables comment. Her actual comment at the time was that, and I just saw it again recently, was that half of Trump supporters could be put in a basket of deplorables. Well, now she's saying it's all Trump supporters. She didn't go far enough. Biden is calling everybody garbage. You're talking about half the country, and they're bad mouthing them as Nazis. They're bad mouthing them as fascists. You don't win elections this way.
No, you don't, but there's something else. I remember George H. Bush back in the 90s, 92. Yeah, it was 92. And he was losing, but then he was coming up. And they had a minor kind of thing that came up on October surprise about the Iran Contra. It was already, but he had to go back. I'll never forget this. He had to go back on the defensive, and that's pretty much why he lost. It wasn't a major, like, scandal. He embezzled money. It was just a revisiting, and he had to go back on the defensive. I believe this is very similar. I believe that any chance of her taking any time with 4 real days left, when you have to revisit and not be on your message, that is critical time lost and momentum. Am I not correct, Dr. Lopkin?
Well, she didn't really have any momentum to begin with.
Well, I know
but
that. I mean, if she did, assuming she did.
yeah. No, at this late date, any little stumble can have a big effect. And I mean, in this case, the Democrats have completely blown their theory that they're calling for unity because they keep bad mouthing half the country. Again, you can't do both. Either you're trying to unify the country or you're trying to demonize half the country. And I think what's even more important, and of course the mainstream media is completely ignoring this, but when this happened, Trump and I believe it was Marco Rubio were at a rally, and Marco Rubio came on stage and told Donald Trump what had just happened, what Biden had just said. And Biden, made a joke about, well, he doesn't really know what he's saying, but he actually told the audience that they have to forgive him. At this point, his mind is so gone, we can't hold it against him. We have to forgive him. We have to bring the country together. That message the mainstream media is ignoring.
Of course. But that is also troubling. We've talked about it before. They don't even have the pretense of being objective. I mean, to pull a comedian and make that a major, it was nothing. Okay. I think the whole thing's overblown. I think she's in huge trouble. I believe there's a better than 50-50 shot that Trump wins the popular vote. How do you like that? Atlas poll, which was the most accurate poll of 2020, has him up +3. And Dr. Lopkin, do you know he's +1 in New Hampshire?
Yeah, a lot of the states that were considered toss-ups are now leaning Republican. He now has somewhere between a 1 to 3 point lead in most of them. It is absolutely amazing. And again, you're seeing the desperation because they're just making things up now. Whoopi Goldberg on The View was yelling about the fact that if Trump is elected, he's going to break up interracial families and make interracial marriage, illegal. No, of course he's not going to do it. Kamala Harris was again going on and on about Project 2025. Okay, not only did Trump not have anything to do with Project 2025, but Trump's staff has already started vetting people for a potential transition team. And anybody that was involved with Project 2025 was immediately disqualified from being on the team.
It's even a bigger issue. It's all about being the Chardonnay elitist class. When you don't give a shit about inflation because you have more money than God, crime, blah, blah, the list goes on, you care about Project 2025. No one who's putting groceries on their credit card gives a shit about Project 2025. They might not even know what the hell it is. How do you like that?
Well, most people don't know what Project 2025
Yeah.
is, especially the Democrats who are yelling about it. Most of them have never read it. They have no idea where it came from, what it says. It's just a phrase to them to try to, badmouth Donald Trump.
I would agree 100% with that. And what do you think of the Supreme Court supporting Virginia's initiatives to get? I don't even know why it would even go there. It's amazing. And these judges, these Obama judges, a bunch of left wing radical socialists. Oh, yeah, well, you got to block getting non citizens. I mean, really? What are you smoking, dude?
Yeah, for any listeners who might not have caught the details of this case, Virginia started taking people off the roll who self-identified as non-citizens. Okay, it wasn't that they decided someone wasn't a citizen. They went back to the driver's license rolls. And on the driver's license application, you have to say, are you a citizen? And they started removing from the rolls anybody who said they were not a citizen. Now, it's not just Virginia state law that says non-citizens can't vote. Federal law, the United States government has said if you are not a citizen, you cannot vote in a federal election. So Virginia was literally just following the law, and the Democratic Party, and in fact, the Biden administration, the Department of Justice, sued because they didn't want these people taken off the voter rolls, despite the fact that they're not allowed to be on it. And thanks to Obama appointed judges, this was forced to go all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court didn't even bat an eye. They literally just went, are you kidding me? The law is very clear. They're not allowed to be on the voter rolls.
Yes, and you mentioned Obama. That's another interesting character. The Messiah of what, 10 years ago? I think that train has left the station. Do you agree or not?
Yeah, he's got no credibility left. He's got no
None.
pull left. I think we saw the death of his influence when he made the speech towards black males about how they have to support Kamala Harris because she's black. And black males in large numbers went, are you kidding me? And they literally told him, no, you've actually just offended us. We're not listening to you. And when he
Very
lost,
interesting on that note, they had a black barber shop, and I thought it was totally amazing. They were saying, he was really saying, you N words, that's their words, not me. You N words, get in line now. It was condescending. Are you kidding me?
It was condescending. And speaking of barbershops, there was a segment on a barbershop that Lawrence Jones had gone to. And I was absolutely appalled because the owner of this barbershop was explaining that he is going to vote for Trump. And for him, it came down to one issue. Before Biden took office, his monthly electric bill was around $800 a month. Now it is $12,000 a month. That is absolutely unforgivable. How the energy could have gotten that high in New York City is ridiculous. Now, I know, again, I'm originally from New York City. My family had businesses in New York City, so I know that Con Ed, who's the electric utility in New York, jacks up the price on commercial properties much higher than it does on residential. But $12,000 a month, that is absolutely insane. And of course, Harris has literally said, well, there's nothing I would change.
No, it was a disastrous campaign, and it was also an outgrowth. I think Biden actually put the FU by basically endorsing her. I didn't think it was true. I really didn't think it was true a month ago, but she might be worse than Uncle Joe, and that's saying a lot. She's vacuous. She's no original thought. And I'm sorry, I'm piling on, but I actually truly do not believe she's a very intelligent person.
No,
And that's my honest opinion.
she clearly isn't. But the thing with Biden is, as bad as his mental faculties are now, he has a 50-year track record that he could have run on. People knew what Biden stood for, even though the last 4 years have been an abysmal performance. The campaign could have gone back over 50 years and found accomplishments and found things to campaign on. Harris didn't have that. And when Biden stumbles, well, he's 80 years old. He's slower now. He can't do as much as he used to. This happens with age. Harris doesn't have that excuse. Harris is, what, 20 years younger than Biden? Something like that.
22, but who cares?
Yeah, she doesn't have the excuse of not having all her faculties anymore. She doesn't have the excuse that she's 80 years old and, you slow down when you get older. Although I do have to say, if you take a look at the photos of her from when Biden was the candidate and now, she has aged in just the last few months.
Yeah, because she has to actually do work and have the stress of being in the real world, something she hasn't done for the last 30 years as a celebrity. I do find it offensive that she's actually running. Again, I might disagree with Obama, whatever, but there's a certain level of intellectual capability she is devoid of any.
Yeah, it doesn't even bother me that she's not capable of intellectual thought. What bothers me is the fact that they rigged the primary so that Biden would be essentially unopposed and undefeated. And then they staged a coup to remove him when they realized how bad he was. And I say realized, but let's face it, I first reported that Biden had dementia in 2019. Chuck Todd made mention of it in 2021. There was no way the people in the Democratic Party didn't know he had dementia.
100% agreed with you. But let's dovetail to a more optimistic and possibly encouraging subject, and that is Elon Musk. I think Cantor, the investment firm, the leader of that, will spearhead an efficiency initiative or unit in a possible Trump White House. Long overdue, and a guy, not when you just have some bureaucratic idiot, but a guy like Musk could really do a job, get rid of the waste and gunk in our government.
I'm all for him doing an efficiency committee. When he bought Twitter and turned it into X, he actually got rid of 80% of the staff with no loss in productivity and no loss in results. So, yes, he's very good at it. I think it's going to be a lot harder than he anticipates, though, because
Could be.
unlike Twitter, federal employees have a very strong union, and the union is going to fight to keep every one of these useless people employed. And
I
let's
would
face,
agree with you, Dr. Lopkin, but it's a fight that has to happen.
yes, it is. It's definitely a fight that has to happen. I'm just not sure how good the results will be. It's got to be done. They've got to start. I mean, if you take a look at the Committee on Government Waste, this is a nonpartisan nonprofit that looks at all of these government projects. And on average, for everything the government wants to be able to accomplish, they've got about 18 different agencies working on it. Well, we don't need 18 different agencies. Streamline it. There is absolutely no reason why the Treasury Department, the Postal Service, and the FBI all have jurisdiction if somebody sends a bomb through the mail. Give it to one department, one law enforcement agency. There is no reason for all of the duplication and triplication in services. And it's not like the government is doing well to begin with. You've got all of these people doing a terrible job. Nobody has ever dealt with a government agency and said, wow, that was a really great experience.
That was refreshing, yes. Um, Before we leave, let's revisit with 6 days left. Again, how do you see this election and why? Contributing factor. Like,
Right.
I see X winning, and here's why.
Yeah, right now, I don't see too much of a change from last week. I think Trump still has a 60% chance of winning. The momentum is in his favor. Take a look at what's gone on with the polls, with Nate Silver's analysis, and with the betting markets.
What does
As
Nate Silver say?
Nate Silver also now has Trump up by about 65%. And
Wait, I need to say something. He was even a week ago.
yeah,
It was even. Even.
but all of these new polls came out, and the one that I find absolutely hysterical is, consumer confidence has been wavering for the last year or so. When the polls started showing that Trump was now in the lead, and as it became more probable that he would win, consumer confidence actually jumped.
Very interesting. And another question for the esteemed Dr. Eric Lopkin, leading author, best-selling. Are you going to, let's just say there's still an election. If Trump is winning, are you going to watch MSNBC and watch their heads explode? Rachel Maddow might have to be put in a mental hospital. No, they make it a straitjacket.
I tend to flip between channels on election night. It's going to depend on how quickly the results come in. Unfortunately, they're actually talking about the fact that we might not have a winner until the Saturday after Election Day. They're anticipating it may actually take that long to count all of the ballots, thanks to absentee ballots and early voting. The Harris campaign has announced they're actually staffing up their legal team to actually challenge anything that comes out that might indicate that Trump is winning. So
that's a sign of confidence.
We may go a while before we actually have an answer as to who the next president is. As to whether or not I'll watch MSNBC, I will probably do what I always do and flip between all the channels. And I find it amazing because it's a lot like watching alternate universes, watching, Fox, CNN, and MSNBC all talk about the same thing with vastly different viewpoints.
I would agree. My little humble opinion, we will have a winner next day, late in the day.
I hope
That
so.
is my. Well, Dr. Lopkin, our listeners can certainly give their input onto what they feel about the show and what they want to talk about, and even their opinion on who's going to win the election, correct?
Yes, let's hear what you have to say. You can catch us at the xvadio.com website. Go to xvadio.com/connect. Let us know what you're thinking. You can also message us at the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin, and we'll have our first post-election show next week.
We'll see you then.